On this week's episode of the Read Option Podcast, we're talking about Justin Jefferson's brand new contract that broke records. We're doing some fantasy pops or flops, and we're going to talk about what a successful season for teams in the NFC South would look like. Enjoy.
Dalton steps up. It's complete. Remarkable.
Cut back outside right 30, 35, 40. Down the far sideline. He's still moving. It's going to go.
Pass is caught. Diggs. Sideline. Touchdown. Unbelievable.
Read Option Podcast, episode 16. We're 4 away from the big 1%.
Oh, yeah.
Being the 1% of all podcasts ever.
There we
if we
go.
make it to episode 20.
And I got to be honest with you, we're starting to feel the lag, right?
Yeah.
We're starting to get to the point where we're struggling to maybe come up with some interesting topics, and it's tough to go for a full year, especially on the off season, right?
Yeah.
You really have to kind of dig deep to get some worthwhile stuff that's worthwhile to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So I can understand that you hit that like that quarter or third of the year mark. I can understand because it's a season.
Combine's over.
Yeah, it's a season.
Draft is over.
Right.
You're waiting for spring training, not spring training, but
waiting
mini
for-
camps and stuff like that.
So you got a mandatory mini camp, I think, starting up for a lot of teams this week, next week.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're looking for
You're looking for the preseason.
yeah, well, yeah. So that's another month and a half away at least, right?
Yeah,
It starts
so-
somewhere in end of July, early August.
So I think early August, right?
Yeah.
Is the first game of the preseason. I mean, at least for now, they're talking about like getting rid of the preseason potentially and maybe going to 18-game season.
Sure.
And we'll see what happens.
But we're not there yet.
We're not
you
there
know?
yet. So we'll have some preseason stuff to talk about this upcoming year.
Yep.
If they take preseason away, God help us come up with content for those 4 weeks.
But, I got to be honest with you, like we spoke about last week, the preseason, if you see the starters, if you know who's going to be the starters 95%.
Sure.
It for the most part, you're really only looking at the 5% of people that might make the team. And if they do, it's going to be as a third stringer. It might be as a practice squad guy, right?
Sure, but at the
And
very
you
least, you
never-
get something to watch.
Yeah, but
And maybe you talk about
you
it.
never get to see the starters.
No, but
They-
maybe you get to see some of the guys that could be pops, could make the team. At least it's something.
Yeah.
If they get rid of preseason, then we're really scraping the bottom of the
We
barrel.
have had
for,
so many guys that have popped in the preseason, didn't even make the team.
That's true. That's
Pete
fair.
Carroll talking this guy up, and then it's like, oh, he didn't even make the final roster.
Yeah,
what the
that's
heck?
fair. That's fair. All right. So
Anyway.
speaking of people that did make the roster, Justin Jefferson, 4-year, $140 million contract, highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, he might be the biggest game changer on offense outside of any quarterback in the league. So 140 million, it's going to be 35 million a year, which is basically quarterback numbers. Like,
Yeah.
there are plenty of quarterbacks not making that.
Sure.
So that's pretty crazy.
And he's got almost 90 mil guaranteed. So my thought is Justin Jefferson, healthy full season, is a top 2 receiver.
Sure.
I would throw him up there. I would put Tyreek Hill only because Tyreek Hill's body of work has been just amazing in the last 2 years. But Justin Jefferson is, there's 1 and 2, and then there's everybody else, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but he's 6 years younger than Tyreek Hill,
yeah.
and they just signed who they think will be their franchise quarterback, who's a rookie.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure I'm sold, but Justin Jefferson could definitely make him a better quarterback.
Absolutely understood. But think about it from the Viking standpoint. Who would you rather have helping what you believe is your franchise quarterback being molded into a franchise quarterback other than the best receiver
It's
in the
true.
league?
Yeah, you want
right?
to keep that guy.
Want to keep that guy. So interestingly enough, think about the combination of the contracts. Justin Jefferson, who's only 24, by the way, signing a 4-year contract, and JJ McCarthy, as a rookie, has the 4-year contract with the 5th-year option.
True. It lines up. It's kind of usually backwards. It's like rookie wide receiver comes in and gets made into like a star by the quarterback.
By
That's
Aaron Rodgers
that's a veteran
yeah.
who you've given a ton of money to.
Sure, this is the opposite.
So, yeah, this is the opposite of the contracts.
Sure.
Which is like now the wide receiver has the big contract and the rookie quarterback is supposed to be the guy that you're not paying and getting value out of.
Right. But your number one wide receiver is only a few years older than
It's true.
what you believe is your franchise quarterback.
Yeah, 21, I think JJ McCarthy is.
So I love the signing. He was on pace last year. He got hurt. He played 10 games. He was on pace last year for 116 catches, 1,700 yards.
He got hurt in week 10.
Yeah,
and he still had 1,000 yards.
Still 1,000 yards receiving.
Yeah.
Okay,
With a backup quarterback.
this guy, with exactly
Josh Dobbs. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he is.
He's nuts.
Yeah, he is fantastic. And what I love about him is that doesn't seem to be a diva.
Nope, not yet.
Not
Odell Beckham was not a diva until he was a diva.
Fair enough. Fair statement. Okay. Doesn't seem to be a diva.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. Seems pretty humble, actually. Like, it's the opposite of a diva. It's not like he's just quiet and reserved. He actually seems like a good guy. Like, he was talking Kirk Cousins up, and he's like, that's my quarterback. I love him when he was there, obviously. And when he when he got the contract, he made a video about it and like, thank you. I can't believe this. This is like a dream come true. It's not like, a bunch of Instagram posts of him like flushing out $100 bills and stuff. He's actually it seems kind of genuine. Yeah.
Yeah. So my thing about him, he seems like I equate him to Julio Jones in his prime, who catches touchdowns on top of it.
True.
Because Julio Jones in his prime was going 100 catches and buku yards, 1,500, 1,600 almost every year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. You look at his average reception, he's up around 15 every year.
Yeah.
Some of these other guys, you look at Stephon Diggs, he gets his 110, 120 catches, but he's only catching for 12 yards average, 12.5 average. I'm on say Raw, whatever the heck his name is. He's getting, but you look at Jefferson, he's going 15 yards almost every year of his career.
Yep.
Dude, and with the number of catches. So it's not like 70 catches for 1,200 yards. It's like 100 catches for 1,700 yards.
Yeah.
Like his numbers crazy.
Through his first few seasons, 4 years, against Randy Moss, like blows him out of the water in yards. He has like 800 more yards than him. More catches, like maybe 50 more catches or something like that.
Yeah.
The only thing is Randy Moss was a touchdown machine.
He was.
Jettas has like 33 touchdowns or whatever.
Jefferson is good, but not great.
And Moss had like 50 plus touchdowns in his first 4 seasons.
Agreed.
It was crazy.
Moss was a touchdown machine. Now Jefferson is good, but not great yet.
For touchdowns.
Touchdowns, yeah. But catches and yards, oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's up.
So my question is, how is that going to affect? So CD Lamb has been waiting for his contract.
Yeah, he's going to get probably like 120 guaranteed or something like
Yeah,
that. Not nearly Justin Jefferson, but he's staring down Jerry Jones right now.
CD's,
like, where's my contract?
But CD's top 5, Jefferson is top 2.
Yeah, so he's not going to get quite the same amount of money.
And he shouldn't.
He shouldn't. But CD kind of solidified himself this past year.
Oh, absolutely.
Unbelievable ride.
Another guy who's had like the last 2 or 3 years just been top notch, top 5.
Yeah.
Not top 2, but top 5.
Yeah,
no
definitely
doubt.
top 5.
Yep.
And we've talked about that in the past few episodes was he was in the top 5, like especially the young wide receivers. He's like probably
absolutely.
the third best young wide receiver.
Absolutely. No question. So Jefferson, 90 mil guaranteed.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow.
So speaking of I guess former Vikings, so Kirk Cousins, there was some talk during when they first signed the contract when he first signed the contract with Atlanta that there was some tampering going on. And Yeah, right. So, and I vividly remember you being like, "Nah, nothing's gonna happen. Whatever." And now there's talk that there's gonna be severe problems with that, and there's gonna be severe what's the word?
Penalties.
Penalties. Yeah. So that's not usual. Actually, it's very unusual because you hear sometimes about like, some shit happened, whatever.
And that's what
but
I
like
thought
slap
it was.
on the wrist
That's
usually.
right. And that's what
They're
I thought
talking
it was
about
at the
severe
time.
consequences. That's crazy.
So
there's no talk about what the consequences are going to be yet, I don't think.
So they are expecting the rulings for now. Also, mind you, the Eagles are also on the hook for tampering with Saquon Barkley.
Yes, true.
So, but out of all the information that I've read, the Kirk Cousins situation is going to be worse.
Yeah.
At the time, I think you hear something like this with any big free agent signing almost every year, and then nothing comes of it. And I think that's where I was going, was like, it's not a big deal. They're going to blow it. It's going to blow over. It's not, they're going to say, oh yeah, it never happened. They contacted him properly after the time frame. This seems like it could be a problem.
Yeah.
And so
now you know why they went out and got Michael Penix, I guess.
Well, no.
I know.
Because I did some research.
That's just a joke.
So your joke plays into my joke.
Okay.
Check this out. So I did a little research on what happens on these tampering cases and when the team is found guilty.
Yeah.
Right. So it usually goes with a fine.
Sure.
Who cares about a fine?
Nobody gives a crap.
Yeah,
about
these people have more money than God. None of us care about a fine. You know what? Fine these people $1 billion. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
But there's been a couple cases that have cost teams draft picks.
Yeah.
So,
I wonder if maybe they'd go as far as like suspension in some cases.
They have not. They have never done
Really?
that. They've cost teams draft picks.
Gotcha.
And so the joke I was going to make was if they take away draft picks from the Falcons, it's not going to matter. They drafted Penix in the first round anyway.
Exactly.
So you're not really,
it wouldn't even matter.
Not really costing you much anyway. but that can be a problem.
Yeah.
If you lose. So there have been teams that have lost first round draft picks. It happened, I think, when what's his name? The coach of the Broncos.
Sean Payton?
Yeah, Payton was involved in the tampering thing, and
Really?
I think one of the teams that signed him was lost draft picks.
Really?
So don't quote me on that, but I know that there have been teams that have lost first round draft picks because of the tampering. And I guess all that means is that they talked to him. You remember
Before the tampering.
Yeah, before the legal that's why I said
tampering,
legal tampering way back when in like podcast number 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So legal tampering is like that day you can start chatting contract with somebody, but maybe the Falcons grabbed Cousins on the side and said, "Hey, if we offered you this much, you think you'd sign with us?"
There was a
something
lot
like
of
that.
talk about him going to Atlanta way before the tampering period, so
But
I wouldn't doubt
just
it.
because the media threw that out there.
Sure, but maybe it
doesn't
was
necessarily mean that they were tampering.
maybe it had some legs to it, though. Maybe they actually
Agreed.
were tampering
Agreed.
like in a way that they shouldn't have been, and that's why the word got out.
So that's really where it hurts you is where you lose draft picks.
Okay.
And so far there hasn't been any suspensions for anything like that, but
Gotcha.
losing draft picks, that definitely
And this
will
also,
cost
they're saying severe repercussions. So it's like, who knows? Maybe the first guy to get suspended on tampering charges, I guess.
Wow, that would mean they had to call him in January or something.
Sure,
like,
but,
dude,
that's
we
just
already you
yeah.
already signed the contract with a date on it already.
right.
You know, like I don't know.
That would be pretty severe, but we'll see. We'll see
Dude,
what happens.
Delete all of your phone records.
Yeah, right.
Okay, like how do you get caught doing that? I don't know.
I don't know.
But if it does cost them draft picks, that could be a problem.
A big deal because they're trying to rebuild right
forward.
now. They're definitely maybe not rebuild, but become a Super Bowl contender.
Dude,
they're on their way to.
If
They're
they get
4 or 5, 2 or 3 good players away from being like a real playoff
dude,
team.
if they get 3 more wins, they're winning that division. That division is so average; it's beyond
really
belief,
is.
right?
It is really not.
So
the Bucks are the best team in that division, and
Right.
they're not.
and they were
crazy
9-8.
good,
They were
yeah.
9-8 last year,
Yeah, they're
right?
not crazy good,
So, Okay, granted, does Cousins win them 3 more games?
Probably.
He certainly could.
Yeah,
and another
say
year
he
of
might be able
Bijan
to.
Robinson like getting involved in the offense. I think that's fair to say.
Definitely.
They could be a serious playoff contender this year.
And we'll talk more about the Falcons in a little bit. But
Correct.
Let's go
Moving
into
on.
our next segment.
All right.
Underrated, overrated, wide receiver edition.
Okay.
So this is current wide receivers. We're not going like old timers or all time or anything like that.
Yep.
So we're gonna start off with Jalen Waddle.
Okay.
Jalen Waddle, overrated, underrated.
I got to say he's rightly rated.
So properly rated.
Yeah. So the first 3 seasons of his career, he caught for over 1,000. He's been in the league 3 years. Every year he caught for 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And he missed 3 games last year, still caught for 1,000 yards. He had 100 catches the first year that he played. That's not bad for being number 2.
No, that's
behind
really solid.
Tyreek Hill,
Yeah.
right?
So I don't think he was Hill on the team his first season?
No.
So
He caught 100 passes for like 1,000 yards. He had like a 10-yard average, 9.8 average
Gotcha.
or whatever. But clearly a force. He was open for 100 catches,
Yeah, definitely.
right? And then you put Tyreek Hill there, and his catches dropped severely.
But his yards stayed the same.
But
pretty
his
much, right?
yards, yeah. So not half bad. I think he could be a number 1 on
A different team?
maybe a third of the teams in the league.
Really? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think he's good.
I'm gonna go a little underrated because I don't hear his name thrown out as much as I think
Because of Tyreek Hill last couple of years,
and I think
yeah.
he gets buried a little bit.
Yep.
So he's slightly underrated. I wouldn't say he's super underrated
Okay.
because people know him.
Yep.
People know he's one of the.
When you
better
think of
receivers.
Dolphins, you think of
Tyreek
Hill.
Hill, yeah,
no
definitely.
doubt. I would agree with you, but I think Waddle came out, and his first year without Tyreek Hill, 100
Most
catches,
people
1,000
noticed him.
yards,
Yeah, fair enough.
and 8 touchdowns. Damn.
Yeah.
That's not half bad for your. So it wasn't necessarily his rookie season because I think his whole rookie season he was dealing with an injury,
Gotcha.
something going on there. But
Still, his first year
Dang.
playing. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Next up, Chris Olave.
I'm going to go slightly underrated. He's only been in the league 2 years.
Yeah.
And he's at 1,000 yards both seasons. He has 160 catches for the 2 years of his career. He's been playing on some bad to average teams.
With some pretty average quarterbacks.
pretty
yeah.
average quarterbacks. And nobody really pays attention. So now that Drew Brees is retired and Jimmy Graham's not there.
Oh my gosh,
and-
no
and-
one knows what the Saints are even
Yeah,
doing.
exactly.
Dude, we're going to get to another segment later in the episode, but we're going to be talking about the Saints again too. And I was looking up their record, and for some reason in my head, I'm like, oh, they were like, 3-14 last year. They weren't. They were not. They were 9-8.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't pay attention
It's
to
just
anything the Saints did.
That's right.
They were the most
They
boring
were the
team.
most average, and
They were just so boring.
I have a note on that we're going to talk about later.
The only reason they were 9-8, I feel like, though, is because they're in such a bad division. Like they would have went under 500 if they had to play in a really good division.
Yeah, they okay. We'll get to it later, but yeah.
So
I think
Chris
I
Olave,
think
a little underrated.
bit underrated because nobody. So he came out of Ohio State. He was a stud at Ohio State. Like they've had studs. They've had like 8 studs in the last 5 years that have come out of Ohio State. JSN, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr. I could go on and on and on. But he plays in like almost that dead zone.
Yeah,
of
then no one
like-
even remembers the Saints even exist.
But 85 catches last year and 1,000 yards. I mean, that's a borderline wide receiver 1. It's probably a solid number 2, but a borderline number 1.
Yeah, so I'm going underrated as well.
I'm going slightly underrated.
Because I don't think I hear his name tossed around all that much
I
for
agree.
the amount of production that he puts up,
Yeah,
especially
and
with the crappy team.
And I think the touchdowns hurt him because he's not really a touchdown scorer.
And he's not putting up crazy.
Like Michael Thomas was at a couple years where he was putting up like good touchdown numbers.
Yeah,
and so you
but he
kinda
also,
know about
like
him.
Michael Thomas, usually caught for 100 passes every year too.
1,000,
So
1,500
Chris
yards or
Olave
whatever.
isn't putting up the touchdowns, but he's also not putting up like 1,800 yards
Mm-hmm.
in the season. He's putting up good yards, good catches, not great touchdowns. So
Right.
slightly underrated is probably where he lives.
Agreed.
Right? Yeah. All right, next up, Amari Cooper.
So you and I might disagree on this one.
Yeah.
I think he's slightly underrated.
Really?
So he's been over 1,000 yards 7 of his 9 years in his career.
I did notice that. I looked up his stats.
5 of the last 6 he's been over 1,000 yards, and 2 of them were with the Browns.
Yeah.
I mean,
true.
Joe Flacco throwing to you.
Yeah,
and
well,
who knows before that?
300 of those yards came in like one game from Amari Cooper.
True.
I think he had like 250 yards in a game.
But
with
he's
Joe
got
Flacco.
almost 700 catches for his career. And I think he played with Dak Prescott in Dallas.
He played with
Derek
Carr.
He played with Derek Carr in Oakland. So he's had a couple good, and Derek Carr
was good back then.
Good Derek Carr,
Yeah,
right?
He was actually decent.
So he has played with a couple decent quarterbacks, but his production hasn't fallen off the last 2 seasons with the Browns. That's why I think he's slightly underrated, because he was almost QB proof.
That's fair.
He's playing
kind of went.
You tell me who was a quarterback 2 years ago, and I'll give you $1
for the Browns.
Yeah.
Oh,
They must have had like 2 or 3 of them,
probably 2 or 3, because it was it was Deshaun Watson
who started
and then got hurt.
Yep.
And then after that,
And then last year you had a bunch of bozos starting, and then Flacco admirably had a pretty solid season, but still,
end of the season.
It's Joe Flacco at 38 years old or whatever.
He was
Come
slinging
on.
it though. He didn't care.
He was
Ryan
slinging it.
Fitzpatrick
He
at that
was.
point. He's
He
like, I don't
was.
give a crap. I'm going slightly
Overrated.
It's tough. I'm going slightly overrated. It would be easier to say overrated earlier in his career because he was supposed to be better than he was.
He wasn't putting up the 1,500 yards.
But now that he's kind of like
9 years in the league.
Now that he's kind of like, we know what to expect out of him, I'm only going slightly overrated, and the reason is still because he has like one game every year that pads his stats, and that's why he gets over 1,000 yards.
You think so?
Yeah, he always does. He has one
very
big
consistent.
game. He has one huge game every year. Like he's had like 2 or 3 200 or 300 yard games, or almost 300 yard games in his career, where you're like, oh my God, he went crazy. And then it's like he goes from like 800 yards to 1,100 yards in one game, and you're like, what the heck happened here?
I'm going to have to fact check you on that, but not at this moment.
Nah.
I think he was really consistent. I
Pretty
thought he was consistent.
I think he's boomer bust in fantasy at least.
All right.
He's been slightly boomer bust.
Fair enough.
I'm only going slightly overrated because he's still good enough to put up 800, 900 yards in a season. He just whenever
1,000 every season.
Yes, I know, but then he always has one big game
then the booster
that puts him over, and it's like 10 catches, 150 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and it's like, okay, well now of
it's
course
almost like Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
He has the one game every year.
Yards.
He throws for 505 touchdowns.
Yeah,
and that's like almost like
that's like a fourth of his freaking yards and touchdowns. Yeah. So Amari Cooper a little overrated.
Okay, fair enough.
This one I think we're going to disagree on. Deebo Samuel.
I think he is absolutely overrated as a wide receiver.
Really? Okay, so we agree.
Way overrated as a wide receiver.
Because I know you earlier in the season we were talking, and you mentioned like Deebo's the number 1 on that team. Like you've said that before, and I was like, is he really? He had one season of 1,400 yards, which was like, I think that kind of gave people the wrong idea of like, oh, this guy's really, really, really good. And then he hasn't really done much since then, or even before that, he didn't do much. It was like one good season. And I think Brandon Ayuk is the number 1 over there. I don't think Debo is the number 1.
I think George Kittle might be 1A also.
Sure.
But I'm going to say
Brandon
this.
Ayuk is a better receiver than Debo, I think.
What I had listed, overrated, absolutely overrated as a wide receiver, but he is absolutely
one of the most versatile players.
Absolutely one of the best dual threat weapons.
Sure.
Other than maybe Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, running and receiving. Yeah.
So he adds another 200 to 300 yards rushing every year, and his rushing TD totals the last 3 years, 8, 3, and 5.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So, dude,
for a non-running back.
As a wide receiver, this dude has 16 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that's good.
So I think he's way overrated as a wide receiver, but you can't take this guy off the field because he's probably as good a running back as he is a wide receiver.
That's fair.
So way overrated as a wide receiver.
All right.
Of course, unless he plays the Seahawks, and then he goes for 203 touchdowns. Yeah. Let him run right past us, like we're standing still. But
yeah. All right, last one. DJ Moore. DJ Moore is underrated in my opinion. I don't think people even remember that he exists.
Absolutely underrated.
And he had 1,300 yards last season or something like that, almost 1,400.
He had 14 and change, I think, last year.
He's good, and he was playing with a crappy quarterback.
So this is what I got. He has 1,000 yards for the past 5 years. He had 87 catches 3 of the last 4 years, and he has played on some of the bad Carolina teams and
bad Chicago
and
teams.
Chicago. So he played with PJ
Walker and still put up 1,000 yards.
And still, so
that's who played quarterback for the Browns last year. PJ Walker.
Some of it, right?
Yeah.
You know, but I think DJ Moore is very. I'm not gonna say very underrated.
He's underrated,
slightly underrated. People know who he is, but I think when people look at his stats, they go, wow,
he's kind of
he's better than I thought he was.
He's a little bit like Michael Pittman. You're like, wait a second.
Yes.
Holy crap. Look at his stats. He's actually a really good receiver.
I think that's a great comparison.
Yeah.
Like you don't hear his name thrown out there with the top-notch receivers, but he
puts up the numbers.
But when you go back and you look at it, you're like, wow, damn, dude had a great season. Oh, dude had a good season. Oh, dude had a good season. Holy moly. The last 5 years, this dude has put up pretty good numbers playing with really below average quarterbacks, right?
Fair enough.
So I'm with you. I think definitely underrated.
All right, cool. All right, moving on. Next segment, we're going to do fantasy pops or flops. Just straight up fantasy pops or flops. I think we've exhausted our rookie edition.
We have
version of this segment.
Yep.
There aren't any more rookies to talk about in terms of fantasy.
I think we covered pretty much all
most of them.
Yep.
So let's move on to fantasy pops or flops. We're going to start with Kyren Williams, running back for the Los Angeles Rams.
I gave this one the most thought.
Okay.
I'm going to say flop, but only in relation to where he's going to be drafted. I think
you think people are going to overvalue him?
I think he scored 15 total touchdowns last year, ran for 1,000 yards. I think there are going to be some people that pick him in, say, the top 5
really?
running backs.
Okay.
Because you have some question marks on some of the other running backs. So you got Aaron Jones that's in a new place. Josh Jacobs in a new place.
Saquon's in a new place.
So how are they going to use these guys, right?
Yep.
So I think he'll end up with decent numbers, but hear me out.
He's going to flop from last year.
1,100 yards, 15 total TDs. I think there's going to be a regression to the mean with the touchdowns.
Yeah, definitely.
If he does half that, 7 or 8 touchdowns, it'll still give you good stats.
Yeah.
But if he's being drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round,
you're
expecting a guy with double-digit touchdowns and maybe 1,500 total yards. And also throw Blake Corum in the mix.
I was going to say that as well.
I think
it's not going to be quite a committee, but it'll be
Corum may get the goal line. Corum might get the goal line.
True, because he had 28 touchdowns in college.
Yeah, there may be a vulture aspect there.
Yeah.
15 touchdowns for what? And also, uber efficiency. He only had 250 touches last year and still scored 15 touchdowns. That has to come back.
That's got to regress.
Now, I'd like to bring up a point. Alvin Kamara in his rookie season scored 13 total touchdowns, had like 800 yards rushing, caught 81 passes.
Yep.
And when we were going to the draft, I talked to my boy Oz, and I'm like, I am not going anywhere near Alvin Kamara. There's no way. Yeah. He is going to regress to the mean.
And
then
he was basically LaDainian Tomlinson light.
18 touchdowns with 81 catches and 1,600 total yards. And so, well, honestly, what the hell do I know?
Yeah, fair
enough. So Kyren Williams may come back and score 19, 20 touchdowns.
No, I remember that, and that was not one of your proudest moments in fantasy predictions. But
it was not. I'm like, I am not going anywhere near Kamara. There's no way. Yeah, then he just blew up for 18 touchdowns.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts.
So yeah, I think there's going to be a regression to the mean.
I mean, that's the most logical argument, I think.
Yeah.
He's not going to be bad, but he's going to regress.
No, I just think he's going to be overdrafted.
Sure.
I think 1,000 yards, maybe 6 or 7 total touchdowns. But if you're drafting him in the top 3 rounds,
you need more than that.
You want more than that.
Sure.
So that's my thought.
All right, Justin Jefferson, fantasy pop or flop. I can't imagine a world where he flops ever with any quarterback in the entire league. He could play with Sam Darnold and he would pop.
Agreed.
I feel like that's an easy one.
Yeah, I'm thinking McCarthy early, often, late, double team, triple team.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Hand off to him.
I've seen
whatever
him
you got to
make
do.
plays that don't even make sense.
Yeah.
So it's like he's the best receiver in the league. He'll play. He'll make it work.
I think though he's gonna start slow
because you got to build up the chemistry with a new quarterback.
That's what
I think.
New quarterback. McCarthy has to build up his confidence.
Yeah.
To say he's double teamed. I'm going to dump it off to the back.
Or it could go the opposite way, and McCarthy could just be like, frick it, Justin Jefferson's up there somewhere.
He didn't come out as a gunslinger. He came out as
true. He's very
game
more
manager.
of a conservative passer.
He's kind of a more cerebral quarterback.
It's true.
I don't know if he's going to be that aggressive early with Jefferson until
we'll have to see.
He realizes, hey,
I can throw it whenever.
I got a 4th and 10. We're down by 6. And I got to just heave it up there. And Jefferson, does one pinky freaking haul down with 3 guys on him.
Yeah.
And he was like,
he'll learn.
I could get away with that now.
He'll learn
so
that
that's
Jefferson's
what I think.
that good.
I think slow start. Don't give up on him. He's gonna as they always say in baseball, he's gonna play to the back of his baseball card. He's gonna play Justin Jefferson. His stats are gonna look just, assuming he doesn't get hurt.
Sure.
I think he's gonna have just fine Justin Jefferson stats at the end of the year.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
That's my feeling.
All right, last up, Baker Mayfield.
So my thought with Baker Mayfield is the opposite of what I went with Kyron Williams. I think
he's going to be undervalued.
I think he's going to be a pop because you might be able to get him in like the 9th or 10th round in your draft. So did anybody, y'all out there, if you thought he was going to throw for 4,000 yards and 28 touchdowns, you're full of shit last year, okay? He had as many yards and more touchdowns than Pat Mahomes did and less interceptions than Pat Mahomes did last year.
He had a good season.
Pat Mahomes being drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round of standard leagues.
Yeah. Baker
Mayfield might have been a pickup in your league, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So my thought is if you have a 2-quarterback league, Mayfield is going to be a good, solid value down in the mid rounds, right?
Yep. And the guy who's I believe the head coach, don't quote me on this, but I believe he's the head coach for the Panthers. He was
Canales.
Yes.
He was the quarterback coach.
Quarterback coach for Gino.
Yep.
Quarterback coach for Baker.
Yeah.
Both had great seasons.
Yes, unfortunately.
And so we'll see what happens with Bryce Young because
great point.
We'll have to see, does he turn Bryce Young's career around? Because it's like he made Geno Smith into a superstar, the most yards in a season by any Seahawks
comeback player of the year,
30 touchdowns.
Yep.
And Baker Mayfield 4,000 yards and 28 touchdowns.
Yep.
Like those are 2 really good seasons.
So does Mayfield,
and for guys that were coming off of not being good at all.
Absolutely. But does Baker take a step back because Canales?
I think Baker's hungry.
Carolina.
I think Baker's hungry this year because he's tasted a really sweet playoff victory.
And he's got players around him now.
Yeah. And so he
never had that really before.
And Mike Evans he just got a contract, but he will, he'll be out of the league in a few years, most likely.
80 catches, 1,000 yards like he does every year would probably
but
close
he's
to
not out of
double-digit touchdowns.
He's maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years left in him, but like not close to retirement yet.
No.
He's still good. He's still good.
Yeah.
And obviously Chris Godwin is.
Yeah, and Godwin, you want to throw Godwin on the underrated list next week?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's underrated.
So he had a couple seasons where he caught 100 passes. And nobody even knew he did.
Yeah, true.
Granted, he's kind of more that slot receiver possession, Julian Edelman kind of guy.
Yeah, he's not
only gonna
catching
get
for 17 yards a catch.
no.
or
He's
whatever.
getting you 9 or 10 yards a catch, almost like tight end numbers. But he's still going to get you that first down half of his catches,
and he's still
right?
really good.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move on.
All right.
What will a successful season look like for the teams in the NFC South? So we'll start off with the Panthers. What does a successful season for the Panthers look like in 2024?
So I think they don't have nearly enough talent in a very average division, even.
Yeah,
they don't have enough talent to challenge for a playoff spot.
No.
But a successful season for them, in my opinion, is to straighten out Bryce Young and the offense and to be more competitive in games and start to gain a little bit of confidence.
Yeah.
Because Bryce Young was so bad last year.
Yeah.
He's
got a cool new fun toy to play with this year, though, in Leggett, no?
Oh, without a doubt. Right. And Canales,
True.
who came over.
Can coach him. And
that's right.
hopefully mold him.
Who has been the quarterback guru, as you pointed out, Gino and Baker.
Yep.
Instill a little bit more creative offense, instill a little bit more confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Jared Goff it a little bit. You
Yeah,
know, take a guy
that's
that
right.
has no confidence
Look.
and mold him a little bit, teach him how to sling it.
So this guy was a number 1 overall draft pick, and I'm clearly
There have been some terrible number
exactly
1 overall draft
clearly.
picks.
I am not saying, oh, you're number 1 overall. You're obviously a can't miss prospect.
Jamarcus Russell was number 1, wasn't he?
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
Jameis Winston, I believe, was number 1.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, but he was playing in a terrible organization with not a whole lot of talent around him.
True.
So I just think
It takes a little bit of work.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be some work to do.
Yep.
I have basically Bryce
Not
Young.
everybody's CJ Stroud
Right.
that can walk in and just
Command
I own the
offense.
place,
Yeah,
right? So
which they also took him over CJ Stroud, by the way. So that
Yep.
was probably not a good choice, but who knows
last year it wasn't, but who knows?
who knows if CJ Stroud would do what he did with the Panthers? Probably not.
Correct.
I have Bryce Young shows promise.
Yep.
So basically, if he comes in and he shows like I can do something, then
There's got to be improvement.
that'll be
from last
successful.
year,
Yeah,
right.
there's
Yep.
not much they can do to have a successful season at all. But if Bryce Young shows that he can keep up,
Yep.
then good. If he shows that he can't, it might be time to move on, even after 2 years. You know, because he was so bad last year.
He was. He was so bad, and Adam Thielen still caught, I think, 100 passes.
Yeah, he just looked really bad.
But yeah, he looked really bad.
No confidence.
His numbers were brutal.
Yeah,
Brutal. It wasn't even like, so I understand Sam Howell was not a rookie last year.
but it
Sam
wasn't
Howell,
like Howell where he had a bunch of picks, but he had 4,000
but
yards.
threw for 4,000 and threw for over 20 touchdowns and was competitive all the way through.
Sure.
Like he kept competing. There were games where Bryce Young threw for less than 100 yards. I mean, oh my
bad.
gosh.
Yeah,
So
really bad.
I agree with you. They got to get his confidence going, and they got to really take the next step in developing him as an NFL quarterback.
Agreed. So the Bucks. What do the Bucks need to do
So
in 2024 to have a successful season?
I'm going to say Bucks, Falcons, Saints.
So you're going all three right now.
I'm going to say the same thing for all three of them because
They're all the same team, basically.
Yes, the division is so average
Yeah.
that a successful season for any of them would be winning the division.
Yeah,
because
fair enough.
you had two teams that were 9-8. The Falcons were 7-10, and they were in it to the last 3 or 4 games of the season. Now they have Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Tell me he doesn't get you 2 more wins to get you in the playoffs.
Sure.
So you got the Bucks, Saints, and Falcons. All could be 9-8 next year, right?
Yeah.
So my feeling about the Bucks: build on last season, win the division again, and win another playoff game.
Yep.
That would be a successful season, in my opinion, for the Bucks.
So I have win a playoff game for the Bucks.
Yep, that's
so if they can
exactly.
win a playoff game again, they'll be good. I don't know if Baker Mayfield is quite a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. I don't know if their team is quite good enough to win the Super Bowl or even
Agreed.
go to the Super Bowl.
Agreed.
But if they win a playoff game, that'll be successful. I think the fans will be happy with that. So you're saying the same thing for the Falcons and the Saints. So I'll go. So you want me to go through mine for the Falcons and Saints, or do you have notes on yours?
I have notes on that. So the Falcons, they're really going to need to figure out how Kirk Cousins fits into that offense.
Sure.
Right?
That's true.
So you could be 6-11 next year if
he doesn't,
if stuff goes south,
Yeah.
right?
So I have confidence in Kirk Cousins, and I think a successful season for the Falcons, because, and this is based solely off of the fact that I have confidence that he will be good, is they win a playoff game. I think they should. If they win a playoff game, that'll be successful for them.
Yeah.
Now, it could, like you said, go the complete opposite direction, and Kirk Cousins doesn't fit into the team all that well, and he plays like crap, and he's not the same quarterback that he was after the Achilles injury and whatnot.
Yep.
But I have confidence that he will be good, that team takes really a big jump from what they were last year.
That's what I'm expecting.
And they go out and win a playoff game.
That's what I'm expecting. And for God's sakes, get Bijan the freaking ball.
That's true. He's so good.
Oh my gosh. He is
He's
like
got moves like Barry Sanders.
he's a
man.
Saquon Barkley his rookie year who ran for whatever 1,400 yards and caught for 700 yards.
Yeah.
Give him the freaking ball.
Yeah, he's your best player.
I think he had less than 200 touches last year.
That's crazy. You
Dude.
drafted him to give him 400 touches. Why are you not using
Get
him?
him involved. I don't care if you're passing the ball, handing him the ball, giving him shovel passes. Do something with him.
Yeah, they need to utilize
cut
him.
him loose.
Yeah, let him do whatever he wants. Because he's broken people's ankles.
Oh
like,
my
Like some of the
gosh.
moves that he's put on
Oh,
people
and
are
by
awesome.
the way, yes, you look at him, you look at the highlights, you're like, oh, damn.
Yeah, that guy's
But
good.
you know what? You draft a running back like that high, you know you have a short window.
Yeah, utilize him.
Dude, run him into the ground like
Yeah.
the Cowboys did Ezekiel Elliott.
Especially a guy like that,
Because by the
who is
time-
making cuts like that on turf.
Yeah,
he's
because-
bound to tear his ACL. Like,
Oh, no.
I don't
you
wish-
just jinxed him,
I don't
dude.
wish. I don't wish anything bad upon
Oh.
him. But making cuts like that on turf, you're just asking for it.
Oh
like
my
you're asking to
gosh,
injure yourself.
dude.
He's not going to get injured. He's going to be fine. But you got to use him before he does.
Dude, I gotta see 225 carries and at least 60 catches out of him.
Yeah.
Almost 300
He's
touches
freaking
next
awesome.
year.
He's freaking awesome.
He should be, and I know you got Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins is over 30, coming off an Achilles.
Yeah.
You have a decent receiving core with Pitts and Drake London, but Bijan is your guy.
He's your guy.
Use that
Yeah,
son of
use
a
him.
gun, man.
Yeah, use him.
Anyway.
All right, so
Finally,
last
the
up,
Saints.
I think the Saints, out of the three teams that you listed, are the worst out of the three.
I agree.
And so I have gonna be tough, but make the playoffs.
Yep.
So that'll be successful for them. If they don't, I don't think people are gonna be happy. Like the fans are gonna be happy they're not gonna see it as a successful season. They have to try to compete to win that division because you're right. They are one of the more average.
average
They're an
teams.
they're an easier. They're in an easier division
Right,
in general.
right.
So if they're gonna make the if they're gonna win their division anywhere, it's gonna be there.
Yep.
But again, the Falcons could be really good. The Bucks could be really good. So the Saints, and maybe Derek Carr has like a revolution or something like that. But we'll see.
9-8 won that division last year.
Don't know how.
I don't
really
think-
don't know how.
But because everybody's average.
it's because everyone. Yes, but the Bucks could take a step up, and the Falcons could definitely take a step up.
Agreed. But I still think 10-7 wins that division this year. I don't see
Maybe.
anybody
Yeah, you're probably right.
except the Falcons having done anything superlative to say
true.
we're going to take that leap. You know what I mean? Like, okay, if Mayfield throws for 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns, okay,
Yeah, we should be good.
then all of a sudden you got your stud on your hands.
True.
But for the Saints, I have they need to establish some sort of offensive identity.
Yeah, true.
Derek
Actually,
Carr,
they need to establish an identity
At all.
because I forgot they existed.
Well, I think
they're so boring.
I think their defense is decent. I think their defense is their strong point.
Sure.
But Derek Carr came in. He threw for 3,800 yards, which is Kamara didn't run for 1,000 yards, which is
Yeah.
Like they don't have that
Nobody's scary over
Yeah,
there. No
there's
one's like intimidating. On their
Nobody,
team.
right. Their defense can be, but their offense is just,
Yeah.
it's so vanilla,
Yeah. Agreed.
you know?
All right, cool. Moving on. We're going to do our last segment. We have one. You have one. You have one. You have none.
I must apologize to you and to all of our viewers. It's
You have
been a crazy
no trivia for
It's
me.
been a crazy week. I just came back from vacation. I had to work today, had a busy day, and I'm traveling tomorrow. For the first time in 16 podcasts,
You got no trivia.
I'm unprepared with the creative portion of the show.
All right. Well,
I did all my research on everything that we talked about, but I don't have anything other than that, and I apologize.
this is bad news.
I'm sorry. You don't have anything either?
I have no trivia.
No!
All right. See you guys next week.
Oh, man, that's pretty much it.
All right, yeah, that's it for us. We got
man.
nothing else. I'll monologue for a little while. The off season is tough. We were learning that. I wanted to kind of have a challenge. Like, we're going to start a podcast right after the Super Bowl's over, which we did. And we had some Super Bowl stuff to talk about. We had some combine stuff to talk about. We had some draft stuff to talk about.
Sure, there's some
stuff
there's
that
various
gets
things
chucked in
along
there.
the way that we can chat with.
But there's
as long as
only
we do
so
our
many.
research.
There's only so many. Dude, what are you talking about? To do, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we will do our best to come prepared next week. But it is.
I won't be traveling to Michigan next week, so.
But it is becoming a little challenging. So we're gonna do our best to keep it interesting for you guys.
Sure.
All right. Well, that's gonna wrap this one up for this week. But we will see you next week on the Read Option Podcast. So that's it for that's it for us. Blah, blah, blah.
That's easy for you to say.
That's easy for me to say. That's it for us. Tommy Touchdowns, and
fuck the Razorbacks, Jack.
we'll see you next time. Peace. Thanks for listening to the Read Option Podcast, hosted by Tommy Touchdowns and Razorback Jack. Produced by me, Tommy Touchdowns. Remember to follow us on all our socials, including Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, at the Read Option Pod.